studied by Fernandez Cormac et al., Mayan city of Utatlan, Guatemala, designed according to the celestial scheme reflected by the shape of the constellation of Orion. He's able to prove that all of Utatlan's major temples were oriented to the helical setting points of the stars in Orion, and he argued that the Milky Way, alongside which Orion stands, was thought of as a celestial path connecting the firmament's navel with the center of the underworld. So close to the ancient Egyptian idea. I'm not saying the ancient Egyptians brought it to Central America or the other way around. I'm just observing the connection, the similarity in this complex set of religious beliefs. Orion was extensively involved in Mayan rebirth beliefs, which described the constellation and specifically its three belt stars as the turtle of rebirth. In Egypt, as amongst the Maya, the stellar context involves Orion and the Milky Way. In Egypt, as in Mexico, a journey through the netherworld must be undertaken by the deceased. In Egypt, as in Mexico, religious teachings assert that life is our opportunity to prepare for this journey, an opportunity that should, under no circumstances, be missed. Let's go to North America now. This is the tragedy of the North American pyramids, often referred to as mounds. The tragedy. There was once more than 1 million of them. Only 100,000 are left now. And most of those 100,000 have been subject to horrific destruction. I'm looking at Mound A from Mound B here. As you can see, Mound A has been largely destroyed. A little bit of it is left. Well, here's a notice board at Moundville in Alabama, and I'm going to show you what the text of that notice board says, because this is official archaeology that's saying this. And I have no problem with what official archaeology is saying here. Because what they're saying is, at Moundville, an excellent example of a powerful religious image was the hand and eye motif. Moundville's rattlesnake disc, pictured on that notice board, offers us the best known version, although numerous variations occur, etc., etc. Stories passed down among various tribes tell of the dead entering the afterlife through an opening marked by a great warrior's hand in the sky. One account describes that hand as the constellation we know as Orion, with Orion's belt as its wrist, its fingers pointing downwards. A faint cluster of stars in the center of the palm is a portal to the path of souls, or the path to the land of the dead. Researchers speculate that the hand and eye represent this constellation. Pick up a few more comments that we found on the official notice boards at Moundville, again highlighting Orion. As a group, the knotted serpents and the hand and eye are believed to be a representation of the night sky. The serpents are the ropes that join the earth and sky. In the palm of the hand is a portal or doorway through which the spirits of the dead can ascend the path of souls, or Milky Way, in their extended journey to the realm of the dead. Path of souls, again mentioned there. The gateway or portal between the celestial realms and the earth disk was symbolized and artistically rendered as an open hand with an eye in its palm. We know the hand as part of the constellation of Orion. Once the portal was crossed, the souls of the dead began their journey by walking along a road or ribbon of light, the Milky Way. Essentially the same spiritual idea that's expressed in ancient Egypt and in South America. And this is how it works. The Orion's belt was the wrist, and other stars of Orion were involved in the fingers and the thumb. This is, and it's an example of the hand and eye motif, and the Orion nebula is represented by the eye.
It's running so fast.
And was conceived of as a portal through which the soul must leap on its afterlife journey. Now, Professor George Langford is an internationally recognized authority on Native American folklore, anthropology, religious studies, and ethnohistory. And he notes that the portal in the hand must be entered by a leap at the optimum time. Again, we're looking at a system of religious ideas that seems to have been shared all around the world concerning the afterlife destiny of the soul. And I'm not suggesting that Egypt influenced Mexico or influenced North America. I'm suggesting the possibility of a remote common source from which these ideas descended and were disseminated all around the world. So we have another leap up to a portal in the sky in the constellation of Orion. And there's the ancient Egyptian hieroglyph for the Duat, as I showed you from the Pyramid of Unas, a star enclosed within circle. And in ancient Native America, George Langford writes, the hole in the sky is indicated as a slit being pulled apart, and the fact that it is celestial is frequently elaborated by the inclusion of a star circle or dot. On the Native American afterlife journey, there's encounters with all
What,
kinds
only
of
4?
monsters
Like,
who
why?
will test
Why
us on the lives that we can
Like,
live.
come on, that was such a
And
good
one of them
attempt.
is called the
A
brain
very
smasher.
humble attempt. Like, come
Usually a
on.
woman whose task is to destroy memory by removing or smashing the brain. Indeed, there are repeated references to a menacing female figure, usually called the brain smasher or the brain taker, in accounts of the Native American afterlife journey. Her role is the annihilation, just like that eater of the dead in the ancient Egyptian scene. Her role is the annihilation and permanent destruction of unworthy souls, of the damned, on the afterlife journey. So here's this vignette from the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. The original translation given by E.A. Wallace Budge was very flimsy in my view. When I look at this scene, I don't see an individual smashing himself in the head just voluntarily. I see that goddess projecting power to him and making him inflict that destruction on himself. So I wanted to get a full translation of this scene. What is that? Who is that woman? What is happening here? And so I went to Louise Ellis Barrett at the British Museum, and she provided me with the translation and what that female figure is doing. She lives from the blood of the damned and from what these gods provide her, the demolishing one who cuts the damned to pieces. She is, in other words, a brain smasher.
I
The star Deneb in the
do
constellation we know as Cygnus the Swan is positioned on the bank of the Milky Way
the
exactly
Achilles
at the corner of
heel.
a second path.
I don't want to
dead end
ruin. I don't
branches
want to
George
ruin
Langford identifies Deneb and
the
Cygnus
Xbox
as a
version
whole
or
with
the
the
Switch
mound-billed
version for you.
raptor figure.
But you know the random slowdown.
An
It's not
adversary on the journey
lag.
of the soul,
It's
with the power to block its
it
further progress by
randomly
forcing it to
slows
take a path
down.
culminating in a dead end. In the ancient
You know what I
Egyptian
mean?
pyramid text, the soul
Where
on
there's
its
just
journey
like,
to the
I mean, you have
path
to
is
know what I
confronted
mean.
by a bird
That
adversary
sometimes
that apparently has the power
it
to
just
block its path.
everything is
It's difficult to
slower
give any other interpretation to this
for no
encounter, since the
reason
soul is made to
whatsoever.
declare,
I call
"Hail
it
to you,
slowdown. It's not
ostrich."
lag.
That's a bird of
I was gonna
Egypt.
make a
"Hail to
discussion
you,
about
ostrich,
it,
which is on the bank of the
actually,
winding waterway.
but
Open my way that I may pass."
I didn't want to
And likewise, what else but recognition of the same fork in the Milky Way that was
bring
regarded
attention
as so
to it
ominous in Native America
to ruin
can be
people's
expressed in
day.
the pyramid text where we
Like
read,
N64
"Do
doesn't
not
have
travel
that
on those western
slowdown.
waterways, for
It
those who
has more
travel thereon
lag.
do not return, but travel on the eastern
But the
waterways."
slowdown, I haven't measured
Here are monstrous
the
winged
frequency of
serpents
it
from the
because it
ancient
seems to be
Egyptian
cyclical,
netherworld.
and I don't know if
Here
it's
are
on like a
monstrous
sine
winged serpents from
pattern
the ancient
or
American netherworld.
like a
Here is
wave
another of those
pattern.
monsters encountered
An
on the journey of the
SIN
soul in
pattern.
ancient North America. Upper right, the underwater panther. And I'm just drawing attention to the similarities of the underwater panther to the great sphinx of Giza.
Thanks for
Um,
being back.
On the right,
I do
we
like
see
the
the
N64
chief of the
version more, I
astronomers,
think,
uh,
to be honest.
a religious figure amongst the Skiddy Pawnee of
The
ancient North America,
Xbox
known
and,
as the chief of
and
the
64 are
astronomers,
cool, or
and
whatever.
he wears a robe spangled with stars.
Oh my goodness, my friend.
Interestingly, there was also a figure called the chief of the astronomers in ancient Egypt, and he also
Since
wore a robe spangled with stars, or sometimes
1999,
with a leopard skin where the dots represent
plus
the stars.
I'm knocking on wood.
Coincidence or something going
I'm a
on
lucky
behind the
guy.
scenes that we don't
I'm a
really
very
know?
lucky guy.
On the left from North America, an engraved whelk shell, and it is depicting the hero deity referred to by archaeologists as the Birdman and symbolized as a hawk. On the right, a statue of Horus, the Egyptian hero deity, likewise symbolized as a hawk. The fundamental role of both these hawk-headed deities was to represent the triumph of life.
That's a Nintendo 64 kid.
So
if you don't
both
know,
the ancient Egyptian and the ancient Native
should
American
YouTube
afterlife journeys
Nintendo
involve a
64
strong element of
kid.
judgment. Indeed, in a sense, the
that was
entire ordeal in both
basically
cases
like,
concerns
I
the
am
judgment of the soul
The
for
Nintendo
its
64
choices,
kid.
for what it has
No,
done
sure.
and has not done, for the use it has made of the gift of life during its physical incarnation. In both cases, the unworthy soul can face annihilation.
I mean,
by
this is
gods,
pretty
demons, and
HD.
monsters at any point on the journey.
I think I do a
For
pretty
example,
good
at the hands
job.
of
I think I do a
brain
pretty good job
but in both
providing
cases also For those who have progressed
HD. I'm not saying I'm not hating. I'm just saying.
judgment
I know what you're saying.
Well, in both
Like the
cases,
Xbox
the desired
version.
outcome was to leap up
No,
to
I think
immortal life amongst the stars.
mine.
And I
My
love
stream
this
is
figure
not
here of the
HD, but
initiate
it's
ascending on a
well, it
serpent,
is,
into the
but it's
stars. And
not
indeed it inspired the
HD out
title of John West's
from the 64.
wonderful book, Serpent in the Sky.
It is on the computer and out through my
So,
OBS, but
I don't think we're looking at coincidence here. There's too much going on. I think coincidence is a very
can
weak
get
explanation for what's happening. One possibility is I've mentioned is a remote
HD
shared
versions,
ancestor.
but not like Xbox.
Another
I guess.
is convergent experiences in altered states of consciousness. Actually, my vote goes to both. I think that we are dealing with an ancestor who passed down a legacy of knowledge and an ancestor that was deeply involved in visionary experiences. And those visionary experiences have continued to the present day. So just a few more slides.
I would say prices
sorry
have
that I have to read,
stabilized
memory is not what it was. The
for
origin myth of
used
the Tucano
GoldenEye
speaks
and
of the time,
N64s.
aeons ago, when humans first settled the great rivers of the Amazon basin. It seems that supernatural beings accompanied them on this journey and gifted them the fundamentals on which to build
Yeah,
a civilized
I mean,
life. From the
if
daughter of
anything,
the sun,
I imagine
they
it would
received
just
the gift
go
of
up.
fire and the knowledge of horticulture, pottery making, and many
No,
other
not the
things.
same one.
The serpent-shaped
I
canoe of
traded
first
it
settlers
in
was steered by a superhuman
in
helmsman.
2002
Meanwhile, other supernaturals traveled by canoe all over
for
the
an
rivers,
Xbox.
explored the remote hill ranges.
And
They
it was
pointed out
amazing.
propitious sites for houses or fields or for hunting and fishing, and they left their lasting imprint on many
I
spots.
do not regret
so
that
future
trade at all.
generations would have ineffaceable proof of their earthly days and would forever remember them in
Halo
their teachings.
in Morrowind was
Over
over.
in Easter Island, ancient legends
Two
speak
greatest
of a
games
primeval
ever
Pacific
created.
homeland called Hiva, from
As
which
I
the
play
very
this.
first inhabitants of Easter Island supposedly came. A homeland that was submerged under the sea.
And then I got
It's
it again
particularly intriguing that
in
this
like
tradition
2005.
speaks of 7 sages who are said to have been instrumental in the original settlement of Easter Island. 7 sages. And the first task of the 7 sages from Hiva after their arrival on Easter Island was the construction of stone mounds. Mesopotamia, Oannes, and again 7 sages of ancient Mesopotamia. The 7 sages were remembered as teaching advanced astronomical and geodetic knowledge, including all the skills necessary for planning and setting out a city, and they appeared amongst humanity after an enormous world-destroying flood. Same story roughly occurs in India. Manu and the 7 sages, rescued from the universal
You should get it. It's a lot of fun. The elite community is really fun. Even though there's a lot of controversy going on right now. A lot of fun. It's just a better version because there's no slowdown. Slowdown is really the Achilles heel.
It was built around 300, even the late 280s BC.
Oh, I think he clicks on the message and pins it.
And the language inscribed on its walls is not the Egyptian that was spoken at that time. It's Middle Egyptian. It's a language that goes back to 2000 BC. The entry building texts, as they're called, are found between the inner and outer enclosure walls of the temple. And this is what they look like. I had drawn attention to this curious T-shaped pattern earlier. And they speak of a homeland of the primeval ones, an island like Atlantis. Ooh, archaeologists hate the word Atlantis. Say the word Atlantis.
Maybe because his is already pinned.
You know, because they've proved that Atlantis could never have existed.
I think you can only pin one message at a time.
At the parts of the world that need to be looked at.
You might have to unpin his message. They may not allow someone to override a pinned message.
A snake called the Great Leaping One is described as the chief enemy of the god. It's his assault that causes the homeland of the primeval ones to be swallowed up by the sea. First the island was pierced and the domain was
someone
split.
Else's.
And the texts also speak of survivors, of the destruction of the primeval island of the gods, specifically named as 7 sages, of their wanderings afterwards and of their project to reconstitute or resurrect their lost former world. They came to Egypt and established religion by building primeval mounds. up and down the Nile Valley. And there's Plato's story of Atlantis and how the gods purged the earth with a deluge of water.
What level are you speedrunning, Master
the
Chief?
Survivors are left
On Switch
all over
or
again,
Xbox?
like children, with no memory of what went before. And I'm suggesting that that's what we are. We are the children who have no memory of what went before those cataclysmic floods at the end of the Ice Age. And it's interesting that the story comes to Plato through his family line, through his ancestor Solon. And Solon did make a famous visit to Egypt around the year 600 BC. He was a well-known Greek lawmaker. And he visited the temple of Neith at Sais in the Delta. That temple no longer exists. And there he encountered priests and asked them to explain to him the writings on the walls. And the priests told him of a great civilization that had been destroyed in an enormous flood and that had left some survivors who had come to Egypt. And Solon asked the priests, when did this flood happen? When was Atlantis buried? And by the way, in the dialogues, Plato makes it clear that he's Grecianizing ancient Egyptian words. Atlantis is not an ancient Egyptian word.
No.
So Solon asked the priests, when was this flood? When was Atlantis submerged? And they said, quite matter-of-factly, 9,000 years ago. That was in 600 BC.
I might play like
so
another run
that
or
means
two. I think I'm gonna
9,600
sign off.
BC in our calendar. They're telling us that this
Maybe
lost civilization was
maybe a bit
submerged
more.
in a
We're
great
so
flood
close.
around 11,600 years before our time. This is why I think we need to pay attention to the Atlantis story rather than just write it off as the ravings of the lunatic fringe. And my God, Plato was no lunatic fringe. It just so happens that 11,600 years ago coincides not only with the construction of Göbekli Tepe, but also with meltwater pulse 1b, a very rapid global sea level rise over a period of several hundred years. Now archaeologists say, meltwater pulse 1b wasn't a big deal. If you do the average over 300 years, it's only a few meters a year. Averages don't work with sea level rise. It came in pulses, and when you look at the detail, you find that there were periods when there was enormous sea level rise in a short period of time, and you can tell this from submerged corals in the Bahamas, for example. So the myths speak repeatedly of the coming of the sages in context of a great cataclysm, a derangement of the heavens, cosmic serpents, a global flood, a time of cold and darkness. And frankly, the Younger Dryas, from 12,800 to 11,600 years ago, is the only epoch in the lifetime of anatomically modern humans that fits the bill. What happened on Earth begins in the sky, as above, so below. And that's why we called the series Ancient Apocalypse. And that's the end of this talk. I'm going to take a 15-minute break now. I imagine some of you need a break too. And then I'll be back with a second, shorter talk. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to stop playing for my own health. We're so close though, man. Like we're so close. Oh my God, man. Holy jeez, that was like a 2-hour lecture. It's like 1 a.m. here. It's like I don't need to bang my head against the wall at 1 a.m. You know what I mean? I could go to sleep, wake up, and then stream tomorrow, you know? Oh my God. Oh. computer gets too hot and shuts down and, or not shuts down, but OBS exits. I don't know what to do to resolve it. Is there here? My laptop. Oh my gosh.
They conquered the Andes. They were rulers of the Pacific coast and the first superpower of the Americas. Their name has gone down in history, the Incas. From their capital Cusco in the mountains of southern Peru, they conquered a huge territory in little more than 100 years between the 15th and 16th centuries, stretching from Ecuador to Chile. This empire was the largest that ever existed in this region, consisting of around 10 million inhabitants at its peak. But this formidable civilization is said to have never had its own written language.
Maybe.
Its history
We're so
was
close,
recorded
bro.
by its enemies,
We've had a lot
the Spanish
of really
conquistadors. After their brutal victory over the Incas, a lavishly illustrated chronicle was written, documenting their history. In the 19th and 20th centuries, this and other chronicles were regarded as the only historical sources and references for all archaeological research on the Incas. However, in the last 15 years, thanks to technological advances, new discoveries have challenged many of these assumptions. A new history of the Inca Empire has been revealed, and with it, unknown or previously misunderstood aspects of this legendary civilization.
Wow. Es
Oh,
increíble, ¿no?
The blessed double duck.
We always say that the Inca civilization was the only one that existed without writing, but you know what? Maybe we're gonna have to change that.
That was not blessed.
Many people think Spanish arrived and the Inca Empire fell that day. However, we now know that after the Spanish arrival, they retreated into a remote area of the Andes and continued resisting Spanish rule.
The Incas fought back symbolically, surrendering with great ceremonies, truly spectacular. But this is not mentioned anywhere in the reports of the conquistadors. Through our research, we can now hopefully write a more complete and accurate version of their story.
Guys, I saw.
Wow, this landscape is incredible. Scary, but incredible.
One never gets used to the dizzying roads of the Andes, even if, like anthropologist Sabina Hyland, you've been traveling them for many years. She's on her way to a village in a remote Peruvian valley, Tupicocha.
I've never been to this village. As you can see, it's very difficult to get to. This landscape is gorgeous, but it's rugged. It's kept this village isolated, and so it has traditions that in many ways are unaffected by the modern world.
I'm all fucked up.
Tupicocha is very important for Sabina Hyland's work. For 10 years, the anthropologist has been questioning a theory taught in many history books. The Incas are said to have been the only major civilization without their own writing system. But how could they have managed such a huge empire, the largest and richest that ever existed in the Americas? That's what Sabina Hyland is trying to find out. Because something puzzles her. Although the Incas did not know how to write, they developed a system for recording numbers onto these unique and complex structures made of strings and knots known as quipus. A few hundred of these quipus still exist in the Andes. In Tupicocha, they are carefully guarded by the representatives of the oldest family lines of the community. Sabina Hyland was given special permission to examine them.
Les quiero agradecer a todos de ustedes por estar aquí con sus equipos. Yo soy antropóloga y profesor de antropología en una universidad en el Reino Unido. Es como un sueño estar aquí. A Tupicocha les agradezco muchísimo. Gracias.
Yo soy el presidente de la comunidad, mi nombre es Julián Jaime Medina Alberto. Y qué bien que el día de hoy ustedes vienen para ver nuestro quizás símbolo que tenemos ancestral de los quipos.
It was. Yo, what's up? What's up, Diggs? By the way, 7. What up, G? Yo. What up, D?
Oh, this
What
one
up, Big
looks
Diggs?
perfect. Quipus are unique. The word quipu is one of the Quechua words for knot or for numbers. And this is the ancient Inca way of representing numbers. So this is what we call a long knot, and it has 3 twists right here. That means that represents 3. This is in the tens place, and it's a single knot representing 1. And this is a single knot in the hundreds place. So this chord is 113. This means probably that this represents the obligation that somebody had. They had to do 113 of something.
Yo, I'm
And
about
what
to
could it
sign
be? It
off,
could be
though.
how many loads
Welcome,
of
though,
grain,
Diggs.
how many loads of potato they had
I'm
to
about to sign off.
give,
That might have
to
been my last
community
run, but I'm gonna do
fiestas.
another one.
Or it could be how many
you.
jars of beer they had to donate to the festival. I'm actually
Okay,
writing
no.
an article, so puedo. Muchas gracias, señor.
Since the middle of the 20th century, all the quipus examined by archaeologists were thought to have had the same characteristics. They were made to record numbers.
Thanks for being here.
But in 2017, Sabina Highland suddenly discovered that completely different quipus exist as well.
I got a call from a woman who lived in this small village, San Juan de Collata, and she asked me to come look at their quipus. So of course I came. We have to go over this mountain, and then we'll arrive at Collata. What a road. It helps to be an adrenaline junkie to do this kind of work.
Sabina Highland is on her way there to finish examining the quipus.
I'm really excited to see this quipu again. You know, the last time I tried to come here, we had to turn back because the roads, you know, there was a little bit of rain and the roads became too dangerous. Like you can see, it's really hard to get to this place. We hope we're going to be able to get through today.
What?
There's Collata. Wow. It's so good to see it after years.
It is a great honor for Sabina Highland to be invited back to their village. After all, the quipus which have been preserved from the Inca era are never supposed to come out of storage. They're considered sacred and are both a treasure and a memento for the community, even if the villagers are unable to decipher them. Sabina Highland is only allowed to examine them in the presence of the village chief.
Sí. Perfecto. Wow. Wow. Es increíble, ¿no?
When she saw this quipu for the first time, she realized that it was very different from any she had seen before.
First of all, there are no knots. But more than that, the chords themselves are incredibly complicated. When I looked at the quipu, I looked at it with two herders from the community, and they identified the fibers of each chord as being from different animals. So this beautiful kind of buff color, this is from a vicuña, okay? This blue here, this is dyed llama. There's also in here this kind of burnished red. This is from deer. Altogether, there are 6 different animals represented in the chords. So I realized that I was looking at a quipu with a complexity far beyond anything I had seen before. And so I thought, what are they? That's really mysterious.
During her research, Sabina Highland came across a missionary from the 16th century who testified to having seen quipus
I'm trying to
that
get
were not
one
used
more
to
good
represent
run,
numbers,
but I might
but
just
rather
sign off.
syllables and words. Contrary to previous assumptions, the quipus could therefore also have been used for writing.
I thought, oh my gosh, could this be a syllabic quipu? Wow. And so I thought, well, if it's syllabic, if it's phonetic, that holds out the promise that we could read it someday.
If this quipu were a form of writing, how could it be deciphered? Sabina Highland takes inspiration from a great master of deciphering.
My great hero, of course, is the Champollion, who deciphered the Egyptian glyphs. And what Champollion taught us is that the first thing you do is try to figure out what kind of information is where, right? So he looked in the cartouches and he said, ah, the pharaoh's name is here. Well, for various reasons that are too complicated to go into, I thought, well, maybe the name of the person who sent this is in this. Now, when I looked at this quipu, if you'll notice, there are these markers along the top, and the herders from the village told me this is the insignia of one of the major lineage in the village. So I thought, well, what is the major lineage in the village? It's Ayuka.
A revelation for Sabina Highland. The name Ayuka could be the key to deciphering the quipus. But before she continues, she wants to verify some information. She heads to the General Archives of the Indies in Seville, Spain. They have records of a census taken by Spanish colonial rulers in Peru. The page for San Juan de Collata mentions an Ayuka lineage. This could be Sabina Highland's Rosetta Stone. She begins deciphering.
So, okay, we say the name of the lineage is probably the last three chords, like a signature. We have a dark brown Wanako fiber, U, which is this mottled white and brown, and then Ka, which is the blue Yama fiber. If we try to match these sounds with the ending chords on the other quipu, do we come up with a decipherment that means anything?
There is a second quipu in Collata. Unfortunately, it is not
this is the
well
last run of the
preserved.
night. This is such a good run.
However, the last strings are not damaged and can be examined.
This is the last run of the night.
So the ending chords
Thanks for
are
being
over
here.
here. We have dark brown, which is blue, which is Ka, and then we have this golden brown. This color in Quechua is called par, Yaka par.
For Sabina Highland's method to be confirmed, the word acapar must correspond to a name. She delves into the records again, hoping to find this name there. And indeed, an Acapar family line is recorded in the Collata area.
When I first started to think that this could work, and when I came up with this decipherment, I was almost afraid. I was like, oh my gosh, no, that can't be. How could that be? But this is what the data is telling us.
It's moot. Let's just see what the time is. That was a good one.
Just as Sabina Highland had suspected,
it's moot.
each string seems to stand
Slow.
for a syllable.
How is it
When
that
joined
slow?
together,
Oh,
these
because glass
syllables
and
could
nothing.
form words,
Okay.
sentences,
Thanks
a
for being
text.
here.
A three-dimensional system, fundamentally different from our alphabet. To confirm this revolutionary theory and prove that the Incas indeed had a written language, Sabina Highland needs more data.
So this is really exciting to be able to do a preliminary decipherment of these syllables. So one of my goals is to try to find more quipus that look like this and that has these features, because that would make the decipherment so much better. This is going to revolutionize our understanding of the Inca Empire, because if we can find quipus like this that date to the Inca Empire, If we can decipher them, then we're going to be able to hear the Incas' own words about their histories instead of that of the conquerors. And I'm willing to travel the world to find them. This is really the holy grail that I'm after.
In a few weeks, she'll fly to the US. A promising quipu is kept in a museum in Salt Lake City, and she's been given permission to examine it. If Sabina Hyland succeeds in completely deciphering these quipus, her work would represent a fundamental change in our understanding of the Inca world. Because what she reads from these strings could call some theories into question. In particular, how the Incas were able to conquer such a huge area. According to the history handed down by the Spanish, the 9th ruler of the Inca dynasty, Pachacuti, became the ruler of the city of Cusco in 1438, beginning the Incan Empire. His successors continued the expansion he started, and within less than a century, the Incas conquered territories belonging to over 100 different peoples. According to the chronicles, they were extremely ruthless.
The Incas had the heads of the chiefs impaled on spears. They ordered drums to be made from the skin of their bellies.